the Mishcon Academy digital sessions.
Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining this Mishcon Academy digital sessions. My name is Patrick Connolly and I'm the Academy Director at Mishcon. I'm very pleased to welcome Mo Gawdat to the Mishcon Academy. Mo claims something extraordinary. He claims everyone can be happy no matter what their circumstances of their life. Mo is the former chief business officer of Google X, the so-called moonshot factory, responsible for projects including a balloon-powered internet and self-driving cars. Before that, he was a stock trader and a tech executive and a father of two. Despite his wealth and success, Mo realized he was unhappy. He applied his scientific research skills to develop an equation for happiness.
Unhappiness is not a stranger at all to the rich and famous. As a matter of fact, if you look around you, you can frequently see people who are swimming in money, famous, loved, celebrated everywhere, who commit suicide. It seems that, and it's actually proven scientifically, that the relationship between happiness and wealth and things and all of the things that we chase in life is only relevant until your income reaches the average income of the country you live in, which basically means your basic needs are met. You can think about your own self. You don't have to be a millionaire to think about this. You graduate from university and you tell yourself, okay, I just need £1,000 a month and everything will be fine and I'll be happy. And the minute you get there, that you go like, no, hold on. I need a mortgage, maybe 2,000. And then, you get the mortgage and then you say, oh, but my friend's car is better than my car. I need 2.5. And, it never really satisfies you. Money, at a certain point, the only way you can be happy about money and wealth is to actually be happy about money and about the money that you have. As long as you don't need anything, surprisingly, it becomes easier to find happiness away from things. And the lifestyle that I live now, despite how much money in the bank, sometimes a lot, sometimes little, is I live a very simple life and it makes me very, very happy. When I struggled with my own happiness at, my late 20s, I had everything in life. Like you rightly said, I had a wonderful wife, 2 wonderful kids, a mega, fancy home with a swimming pool and cars and so on. And I felt miserable. And it was quite an eye-opener for me, because as I go out to chase that happiness thing, with my engineering mind, the first question that came to me was, let me define the problem. What is happiness? What am I looking for? And I started to try and find the trend between them. And the common thing between them is actually quite interesting. It's not what life gives you that makes you happy or unhappy. It's a comparison that happens in your brain between what life gives you and what you want life to give you. When you're in love, everything in life seems amazing, okay? It's your same neighborhood, it's your same apartment, it's your same lousy job, and yet once you're in love, suddenly everything seems to be okay. Why? Because your perspective of life is, I should feel loved, I should be cared for, this is what matters to me. If life gives me this, I'm happy, right? If you're terrorized by the media, you could be in the same apartment, in the same job, in the same neighborhood, and suddenly you start to feel that life is fearful, that everything is wrong, right? It's not what life is, it's your perspective of what life is giving you. So the modern world, interestingly, is trying to sell to us fun and pleasure and things and ego and joy and physical joy as alternatives to happiness. But happiness is none of those. As a matter of fact, it. You go, when they used to allow us out, you go to the pub, you have a couple of drinks, you laugh with your friends, and then if something is annoying you, you wake up the next morning and you're still unhappy. The unhappiness doesn't go away. Why? Because all of those alternatives are just the state of escape. They're not genuine happiness. Genuine happiness is actually, the signature of it in your physical form is you get serotonin, a hormone that is a calmer. Okay? It's basically telling your body, look, I've scanned the world around me. It seems safe. You can now relax. You can sit down, you can relax your muscles, you can rest, you can digest your food, you can repair your whatever, right? And that basically is what the happiness equation is telling you. Events meet expectations. I'm okay, I can rest, I can be in peace.
In terms of expectations, do you think people should just lower their expectations and they would be happier?
As you lower your expectations, or at least in the situation where your expectations are low, mostly you're happier. This is why people in India or in Africa or in Latin America are mostly happier than people in Scandinavia or in the UK, even though their quality of life is much lower. Why? Because if you go to someone in Africa and you say, and their expectation is, I might not have enough to eat every day, and you give them a bowl of rice, okay, that bowl of rice is amazing for them. It's like, hey, today beats my expectations, right? If you go to someone in the UK and you order from Deliveroo and they deliver sushi to your home, you go like, that's not how it's supposed to be. I'm supposed to be outside with my friends, right? And the difference, sushi is much better than the bowl of rice. It has fish on top of it, right? But the difference is sushi is not good enough for your expectation. You've set a higher expectation from life. The lower the expectation, the happier you will be. This is why people in Latin America will earn enough for their day. They won't worry about their pension. They won't worry about how wealthy their neighbor is. They won't worry about not having a Bentley yet. They will simply earn enough for their day and go dancing and spending time with their family. Happiness, by the way, as per the definition of the happiness equation, and we can come back to this, should be your number one priority. It should be a higher priority than success, right? Because, by the way, the easiest way to achieve success is to be happy, is to be in your optimum state of performance.
What really comes across in your Slow-Mo podcast is how much you want to share with people your ideas, but also get other people to share their ideas with you, and how good you are at listening to other people's ideas. And that really comes across in the podcast. Am I correct? Did you start the podcast in April 2020?
I did, yeah.
And was that a conscious decision to do that around lockdown and with the pandemic?
Yeah. So I'm very motivated to go around the world and spread that message of happiness. And when lockdown happened, I was on a journey that would have taken me to speak to somewhere around 15,000 people across 7 countries. You can actually sit back and say, life is against me, the mission doesn't want to happen. Or you can actually sit back and say, hold on, I'm not traveling for the next couple of months. I can start a podcast. The reason, by the way, why we're so devastated about it is because we haven't seen the Spanish flu. We haven't seen World War II. We haven't seen smallpox. Smallpox alone has killed 300 million people, right? Now, when you start to see life this way, and I'm really being this, I'm not trying to be disrespectful at all. If you're not one of those 3, then the extent of the lockdown for you is they're forcing you to stay at home, order from Deliveroo, and binge watch Netflix. That's the extent of the lockdown, okay? And we're so angry about it, and trust me, if you just imagine that you could actually be sick, unable to eat, unable to move, and unable to breathe, instead of sitting at home, eating from Deliveroo and binge watching Netflix, you would realize that Deliveroo is an amazing blessing in life. There is a silver lining in everything. Okay, and if we just stop watching the BBC, stop, complaining about the Prime Minister, and start focusing on our blessings, life is not really that bad. And I know it's gray and I know it's cold, right? At least you're inside.
Reading your book within lockdown and appreciating being in the present moment as well, and you talk about being in the present moment and the fact that if you're living in the past or you're living in the future, they're just ideas. Can you talk about more why it's important to live in the present moment and how that relates to being in lockdown as well?
I started 2020 with the weirdest intention. I said 2020 is my year of silence and space. All I wanted was the ability to spend a little more time in contemplation. And look at what happened, right? Infinite time for contemplation. But I'll tell you this. Pink Floyd in an appropriately titled song, it's called Time. They say, and then one day you find 10 years have gone behind you. No one told you when to run. You missed the starting gun, right? And when you really think about it, for most of us, life zooms by. Most of life feels like 42 weeks. Okay? And I asked myself, why is that? When I started to meditate and pay more attention and be mindful, my life started to slow down. I'll tell you why. Because if you're living in the present moment, you're actually alive. You're living. I will remember this moment, Patrick. When I sat on my chair in the morning and remembered that my partner told me something that annoyed me a week ago, okay, I wasn't in the real world. I was replaying inside my head. I was living inside my head. Believe it or not, our brains don't register every single second that you waste living inside your head. Somehow, the reason why last year felt like a week and a half is because you only lived a week and a half of it. When you lived yesterday, you called it today, okay? You will actually never live in the future. When you live tomorrow, you're going to call it today. And the idea is there is never tomorrow and never yesterday other than in your head. They don't exist. In the real world, they don't exist. The other more important thing to notice is the following. I did a study around 100 emotions, human emotions that we feel. Most of the positive emotions that you will ever feel are in the current moment. Excitement, elation, contentment, and so on and so forth. They're anchored in the current moment. Most of the emotions we term negative are either in the past or the future. Anxiety, fear, worry, and so on are all in the future. Regret, shame, and so on are all always in the past. If you're sitting somewhere worried about what the BBC is telling you and what's going to happen tomorrow, and if they're going to lock you down and put you in a quarantine in a hotel that you have to pay for yourself, if you have the bandwidth, the brain waves to focus on this, that by definition means you're okay right now. But your brain doesn't want to live in that moment when you're okay. It wants to worry about a moment that hasn't happened yet, where you have a probability of 0.045% not to be okay. Or a moment in the past where someone laughed at you or told you something hurtful that is completely gone and will never affect you ever again, other than when you generate it as a thought in your head. How stupid is that?
How do you break the brain replay mode and actually make it live in the present?
I actually observed 13 questions, 13 chats, 17 Q&As, and 221 participants, okay? I observed the background behind you, and I asked you, is that, and what is it? And you told me it's a wallpaper, right? I enjoy observing life. I actually play games with my brain. So, for example, I never actually play a playlist on Spotify that is mine. Okay, I start from a song and I ask Spotify to create a radio with one intention: I will not hear a single song I don't like. Okay, so I'm actually paying attention to the music. It's not background anymore. You know what I mean? I'm in the moment. I'm actually listening, because when I listen, I pay attention. When I pay attention, I shake my bum and I live. I have an exercise that I call Meet Becky, and I do Meet Becky at least 2 to 3 times a week, where I wake up in the morning and instead of meditating to quiet my brain, to silence it, I meditate to let it go wild. Okay, so I sit and I let my brain speak. Okay, and basically the only difference is I actually listen. So I have 2 rules. Rule number 1 is everything that my brain says is acknowledged. Okay, and then I ask and let go of. Basically, I say, okay, I heard that. So my brain would say, your daughter loves you, and I would say, oh, thank you, that's wonderful. My daughter loves me. What else? Don't forget to call Patrick today is the second thought. That's normally how it goes. The third is you're fat. And I'm like, oh, thank you, brain. I'm fat. What else? Right? Eventually, after a while, your brain starts to slow down. And eventually it starts to repeat itself. Like, okay, and remember to pick milk today. And I'm like, yeah, okay, we'll remember milk. What else? And it goes like, you're fat. Like, you told me that before, right? You were not allowed to repeat that. So it actually really filters the ideas. They become really parsed and isolated. The second is I take notes. And you would laugh your head off. And you simply start to pay attention. By the way, this is one of the highest form of meditations, to be aware of your thoughts. It's just like being aware of your breathing, but it's at a different level.
Thanking you, Mo, for just sharing so honestly and in such an insightful way. And I hope that you're able to do more international travel, maybe in 2021.
Come to London.
And Yes, exactly. And then maybe at some point you'll be able to come to London and visit us at Mishcon. I'm sure we'd all like to meet you. So thank you so much.
The Mishcon Academy Digital Sessions. To access advice for businesses that is regularly updated, please visit mishcon.com.